Aaron, I think
we
it's
still
time.
haven't gotten into Tarkin yet, Eric.
It's time, Aaron.
We gotta talk Tarkin.
Star Wars Tarkin. Let's jump right into Tarkin. Okay? This is a book about Wilhuff Tarkin, his youth, his ascension, and his eventual
Grand Moffhood.
Grand Moffhood. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I got to say, I really liked, we talk about the audiobook a lot, too. I like the narrator because his Tarkin was pretty good.
His Tarkin's pretty good.
Yeah.
His Vader was a deep
Fun.
Vader. I was happy because I wasn't sure what we were going to get out of this.
Yeah.
I was happy to have, like, Tarkin with Vader
Agreed.
doing things, and then also getting some Emperor stuff in there. I thought was great.
I personally thought it started slow.
I did too. I listened.
It started with Tarkin's like, is this a good outfit?
I didn't get past the first 4 chapters 3 times.
Yeah.
I think. And it
3
was,
times.
I think it was 3 different times. I'm like, all right, I got the 4th
Okay.
chapter. I'm gonna get past this one. And then eventually, I finally got past it, and then it got to some other parts, get to Coruscant and stuff, and I'm like, okay.
As soon as we
like
got to
this one a lot
Coruscant,
better.
I think I was way more in.
But
as
this
soon
is-
as it was like, we're actually not going upstairs. Masamita's like, we're not going upstairs. We're going downstairs to meet Lord Vader.
The book. This is the first one I think I've listened to where I understood what Han Solo was talking about. Harrison Ford had a thing where it's like,
I know what you mean.
you can write this, but you can't.
You can
say
write
it.
this shit, but you can't say it, George.
You know, like there were parts when like they were describing what this ship looked like, and I'm like, what the hell are they saying? Like I don't know what these words mean. A couple of the words, I'm like, I understand a wink.
Yeah.
I get that, but I don't know what these 2 words mean.
I believe the author
So-
is James Luceno.
Yeah.
I think, and I mean he's responsible for some of my favorite Star Wars books. Darth Plagueis, you know, he did that. His prose is like his vocabulary is much more advanced than mine. His prose is fantastic. He's very dialogue heavy. Like characters just talk at each other a lot, and it almost feels like a stage play, which actually really works for an audiobook for me.
Yeah.
Reading not so much, but yeah, I had a tough time. I feel like absorbing all the details because there were so many details. Like, thank God I'm not doing like a trivia contest for this book because I would not remember everything.
There's definitely a lot of details in it. I think maybe what would help me is having more images of some of these things in my head.
Yeah.
Of like, because like an X-wing, I kind of have an idea what an X-wing is,
You do.
but when I have no idea what a ship was gonna look like, I'm like, okay, and they're trying to describe it, I'm like, it's not working. You know, like
He's also very technical. He doesn't say like, when he goes like to Actus class, Darth Vader's going to get into his Actus class fighter, ETA-2. I know what that is because I wasted time
sure.
learning all the ships. I'm like, just say it's a Jedi Starfighter from Episode 3. That's what it is.
Sure.
It's black.
From Episode 3.
Yeah, just
Put that in there.
Yeah, just put it in the book, But I appreciate how dedicated James is to,
I think it's great
to
for that
being.
part of
Oh,
it.
yeah, absolutely. Not necessarily the book that I would enjoy as a kid, but adult Eric really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean a lot of this, I was like, oh, so this is Tarkin and Darth Vader doing. Dude, where's my car?
But it's such a cool car. Thank God we watched the Clone Wars
Yeah.
because the Citadel arc is so important.
They have a lot of Clone Wars stuff
a lot
involved
of-
in this book.
But Tarkin's ship, right, is
It's modeled after
the
right?
ship that we talk about so much. Where it's like, well, George, I thought a ship that small it doesn't have a cloaking device. Well, this one does. That was
Yeah.
the classic Clone Wars behind the scenes story about that specific arc. But the carry-on Spike, as like Tarkin's like ship that he's like, I want it back. I love it. I really do. And I think that the noble end to these early rebels was quite hard to listen to what happened to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, dude, Tarkin in this book is fairly like we really get to understand because like they jump back to him being like, well, what about this lady? It's like she serves us, It's like, and he's like, but I would give her food if she wants it,
I know.
And he's like, it sounds so nice and
He
sweet.
lost his innocence real
And
early.
then you get to the point where he's like a teenager and he's like,
Yeah.
I'll put him in this shipping container and send him to the sun, And it's like,
Yeah, and they filmed it and showed it to people.
yeah, it's pretty brutal. Some of the things he does.
Brutal,
So like,
man.
there's that. I also have Darth Vader where he's like, all right, we'll put him in an escape pod, launch him to space, and he will save fire. It's like
That was dirty.
like I have to say when to shoot.
Yeah. There were moments when that stuff would happen. I had to kind of just like pause and be like, jeez, Vader's bad.
I guess he's a bad guy. So, but it was fun to see some of my favorite bad guys like talking with each other, getting some different information.
Yeah, you get to see like Cassio Tag and Conan Madi. You like all these like I I didn't realize that the Imperial ruling council were pretty much all there on the Death Star. I just thought that was like the Death Star's like, who we got? Bring them in the room.
Put those guys there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize there was also a line, and I was like, huh, Amita's neck is a meter wide? I'm like, okay. I'm like, is that too big? And I'm like, that feels big.
Yeah.
At one point, they said something about like a meter wide thing or something like that, but maybe it was just like he's just over embellishing it. But I was like,
Maybe.
that's an interesting way to just describe just his wide neck.
Sure, right?
Like, all right. So there's just different elements of the book where I'm like, it's cool to have some of these described, but sometimes I'm like, I don't know if it works.
Yeah.
But no, in that part there, they had Amita, they had what's their name from the Death Star?
Marty.
Because that was the one that you were like, he's on the Death Star. I'm like, oh, that's what his name is? Because that's another one of those trivia kind of things where I'm like, I don't know that guy
we were
back
talking
there.
about like the Imperial dudes that are with in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah,
that are
Return
with
of the
Palpatine.
Jedi on the Death Star.
Yeah.
Like, you were like, that's those guys.
The dignitaries.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, they speak.
I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't even know that. I didn't even know their names.
I know.
You know?
I got their names from like a source book. That's just like a weird, awkward picture of like a UK actor being like, what am I doing?
What do I do here?
Why am I in this purple like velvet outfit?
It was cool to have just some of those elements too, of like, here's the people Palpatine has surrounded himself with.
Yeah.
And even hearing like rumors of like, well, one, I guess it's not rumors, but it's like people wishing they could see the Emperor, see him attend like an opera, or being out to opening a business or just doing things, but instead he's like hidden away and no one sees him, and he has his own little group of people that are doing all of his bidding for him and stuff. Meanwhile, he's in a secret Sith temple.
I know.
Hidden
Do
away.
you think? I mean, I know that we're jumping all around the place, but do you think Palpatine like for real knew everything that was happening, or did he just like?
I wondered that too.
It made me think like a lot of Clone Wars times when we're like, the Republic won, but Palpatine's in the back like, yes.
Yeah.
How many times was he being like, oh shit?
Yeah.
I planned that.
I've wondered this so many times of like, is he such a good planner?
Yeah.
Or is he good at finding ways to spin stuff in his favor? Right?
I think
Bad Batch, we had a previous example too, where it's like, was everything that they did exactly what he wanted them to do?
Yeah.
Or is he just like, well, if they do this, I'll use this, and if they don't, I'll do this.
Yeah.
So he's just kind of like, I kind of win both ways, and I have ways to spin it.
I think that we can look at the Carrion Plateau from the Tarkin homeworld, Iriado, right?
Yeah.
This is this kind of like nature preserve that they go to, and they insert themselves in the top of the food chain, and they have to adapt to all of these species, all of these various resource management. It's a really cool idea, but I feel like it's almost a commentary on what Palpatine did to the galaxy. To control nature, you have to adapt, right? Maybe there's like some type of theme you can talk about when it comes to what Tarkin went through to get to the point where he is now. Maybe Palpatine saw a little bit of himself in that, and that's why he kind of like got attracted to him so early on, especially as a senator, right?
Yeah, I thought that was interesting point that they made to have Tarkin being approached by Senator Palpatine way back before.
And Count Dooku.
And Count Dooku at some point, too, being like, join the Separatists. And I'm like, man, what would have happened if he'd have joined them?
Yeah.
Like, well, he probably would have died, right? Or would it have swayed them in a different favor? Because, I mean,
The dude's
Tarkin,
good.
He is good.
He's effective.
Yeah.
He can adapt.
He's fairly smart in, like, figuring things out. And if Palpatine did plan this, I'm like, man, you really risked a lot to do all this when you could have just stopped these guys from the beginning just to test this guy to see how good he would be. But, I mean, Tarkin did a really good job of being like, we do this, they're going to be here. Like, he's constantly just figuring things out.
Sure.
When it's like, what was the one? I think the chapter was called like Footsteps or Footprints, something like that.
Footprints, I think.
And like he's looking at everything they have and just like, okay, well, here's how much fuel we had, or here's this and that, and they're gonna go to this location. Or he's talking about a story in the one part about the dogs. I wrote it down, the Vol.
Oh, the primates.
The Vermox or whatever,
Yeah.
right? Are they primates? Is that how they are?
Yeah.
And the way that they operate, and then like they tell this whole story.
Lord and Shadow, or whatever they were.
And I like the story. I thought that was really cool, and it paired well with like what was really going on in the book. But then it felt like they finished that, and then they're like, I was gonna say Raditz. That wasn't his name. Rancid.
Yeah.
Rancid. That's
classic Star Wars villain name.
Yeah. So I was like, he just, whether he knows it or he's just getting lucky.
Yeah.
He's a good, at least deducer, I guess.
I just love that everybody believes like except Tarkin, of course. But everybody's like, oh yeah, he knew about it. He was just testing people. It's funny.
I mean, that's what I would say, right?
Of course,
If
exactly
I
what I would
say.
say.
I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, I think this is one of the few times we see Palpatine a little vulnerable.
In like the middle when he doesn't know what's going on.
When he's just kind of like, when he's like sitting and like meditating in the dark side, and he can like see all these threads, and he starts pulling on them to see like what changes here and there and stuff. Like, it's really cool to have him like doubt, because we as an audience see him as all knowing most of the time, but when he doubts, that's so interesting.
He has what's the one line he has? It's like I told them to go and squash this, not make us an embarrassment.
Yeah,
and it's like with that kind of stuff, it's like, well, is this planned for him, or is he just like, it's planned kind of, but you can't account for what everyone's gonna do.
Yeah.
But I also wasn't sure how much Vader knew then. If Vader was,
I don't know.
Like, did he know any of it? But one thing I never thought of, and I thought it was interesting that this book brought it up, was I never, even after watching the Clone Wars, was like, man, I wonder if Tarkin and Darth Vader are upset because of him, like, being on the opposite side for Ahsoka. Like, is there a grudge there that could have been had with him being like the prosecutor for Ahsoka? I never thought about that before.
Me either.
And it was something that Tarkin brought up, being like, because he's like, maybe he's Anakin Skywalker. I'm not gonna say anything. Would he be mad that I did that? And I'm like, I never thought about that. Maybe he would be mad.
Like, it would be incorrect to assume that it's Anakin Skywalker, but it doesn't mean that my feelings are discounted. It's Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah. So I thought that was an interesting point to bring up in the book, because it was just something I'm like, huh.
I personally loved how interested Vader was to hear Tarkin's story as they're walking down to the like hangar or whatever.
Yeah.
And Tarkin's like telling him the story about those primate guys, and they're talking about how Lord was in charge, but then you had the other guy, and he was like the second in command, and he went in, he killed they like all got together
had
and
all the
killed
other
him.
ones like attack him and kill him.
And Vader's sitting there like, so I should wait to kill Palpatine until I'm ready,
right?
Like
I like that he brought up, he caught on to what the lesson is of the story.
That's kind of what I took from that scene, is like Vader's kind of like seeing, he's using Tarkin experience as like a mirror to his own, and being like, this guy's incredibly smart. That's what he did. That's what I should do. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I like that. Do you think the book messes? Because this was before Rogue One, right?
This is 2014 when this came out, and Rogue One was 2016.
Do you think
I know exactly.
Do you think it melds well with what we get from Rogue One, as far as like with the Death Star and
all
that kind of stuff?
I haven't read Catalyst. I know that Catalyst very much talks about Krennic and the Death Star and all that stuff, and I'm sure that we need to be able to like fully have a full view of what the canon is.
Sure.
We need to read that first,
because this book's also 5 years after like episode 3, I believe. So there's a little bit of time, and we see at the end of episode 3 like kind of a rough outline of the Death Star.
We do. We see the superstructure. But Tarkin, he's at Desolation Station, I believe, is the station that they are building the Death Star.
Either that is, or that's like the main supplier station.
Okay.
I think that's where they were going to stop the
convoy.
convoy.
And then they're at Geonosis.
And then, Geonosis, there was another station in the beginning. I forget what it's called.
I mean, Galen Erso was primarily responsible for the super laser, for the kyber crystal stuff, whereas that's just one part of it, right? Like on Edo, or Edao, I don't know how you say it, like in Rogue One, when they go and where they're going to kill Galen, like there's like 8 other scientists there too. I don't know if those guys specifically were working on like the hyperdrive systems and all this other what must be like the work of hundreds of thousands of scientists to put together.
Yeah.
We didn't get a mention of Galen, but I don't think that's a whole necessarily.
They talked about the armor in this one, and they talked about the hyperdrive. But I think when they mentioned the weapon system, they were like, there's
a crater.
There's arguments, right, about it and stuff. And like, I think it was around the time that he's like, there's too many voices. For like what direction we should go, so everyone's like, it sounded like the scientists are trying to figure it out, and instead of like one scientist leading them, there's too many arguments of how it should be done. So it leaves room, because I don't know where Galen would be at this point, like if he's with them or if he's ran away yet.
I don't think he would have ran. Well, 5 years. I don't know. Yeah, I mean,
I'm not sure of the time frame for that, but
I can do this. Jyn Erso says that she was, what was she, 10, 8 when she left?
I want to say 8.
She's around 19 in Rogue One. Saul left her at 16. I would say that he probably around this time has like he's probably like more of that Coruscant flashback we saw in Rogue One, you know, with Galen and Krennic and Lyra all in the apartment of Coruscant. Maybe it's around more that time.
Around that time?
Yeah, so he's probably kind of still working on it, but being like, I gotta leave.
But he hasn't gone farming yet.
Probably not.
So there could be some wiggle room there. Of that
I might be completely wrong about that.
I think he's working more on the weapon systems.
Yeah.
But he also has maybe those scientists working the weapon system, and he's more of the Death Star as a whole, right? But either way.
Yeah. We have somebody in the chat say Krennic goes to Galen 1 year after this book.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Galen. Okay.
So he is farming then.
Probably.
And he comes to get him and take
Which
him
would make
back.
sense why there is no mention of Galen or Edo or anything like that.
Yeah. So this would be the time. So, like, they get him in a year, do that. But at the end of this book, too, I was just like, I guess I wasn't thinking about how long it was at Geonosis or what they did with a lot of that stuff, too. I did like him, like, sitting there as it, like, started up and took off, right? Like, the very end of the book had, like, the I don't know. I assume it's like the first launch of the Death Star in a way because they were getting like the hyperdrive and all that kind of stuff figured out.
The whole thing shakes and Tarkin just like.
I just like the idea of him sitting there, and he talks about how like if he felt at home on a Star Destroyer, here he felt comfort or he felt there was something else. It's like the next step from like feeling at home.
Yeah, and it's Nexus also says that Catalyst was also written by James Luceno, so I'm assuming any any connections in there are going to be handled very well by a very detailed author.
That'd be cool.
So that's cool. Yeah, it was cool to like see or read the Executrix, which is Tarkin's ship, which he's on in Rogue One, overseeing the Death Star. It's the same ship, so that's cool to have that. But yeah, poor Carry-On Spike.
Yeah,
he lost that thing.
And I like a lot of the story. I mean, I understood why he became who he was and what the carry-on like landscape place,
the plateau,
like, the way that was for him and the way they treated it. Like, there's the one thing with like well, it's like your clothes are nice, but they look better with some blood on them. And I'm like, that's weird.
Yeah.
And then it kept saying it. And then eventually I'm like, okay, I kind of understand a little bit more of like the Tarkins.
Yeah, the Tarkins.
You know? Yeah.
Very
like
interesting.
His uncle that he has, right?
Yeah. They kind of seem like, I don't know, like British aristocrats that would like go to South Africa for safaris. That's kind of how it felt, like.
Sure.
Yeah.
So.
Just extremely wealthy. And it's so egotistical. Like, they put themselves in the situation, like, at the top of the food chain. They don't, like. I mean, they do adapt, but it's more about conquering, not necessarily becoming part of an ecosystem as it is being the dominant one in an ecosystem. Two very different things. Yeah.
I agree. Just trying to look through my notes, make sure I don't forget certain things. But we also had, and I wanted to bring this guy up, Sergeant Crest, which I thought was interesting.
Crest.
To have. It was the only one that was mentioned as a clone, right?
Was he a commander or a sergeant?
Sergeant Crest is what I
gotcha.
what I written down.
Okay.
I don't know.
An aging clone trooper that Vader hears him and thinks of Rex a little.
Do you think
bit.
it's like holding on to sentiment in a way?
Well, Vader said, like, you have failed me for the last time, and then later...
I feel like he said it like 3 times.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Like, when Vader says you failed me for the last time, like, everybody knows, like, oh, hey, maybe I'll get a second chance. That doesn't happen.
Maybe Crest is the reason in the original trilogy that he's just choking everybody. Because Crest's like, I'm so sick of all this. I'm done.
Maybe.
I
like to think that the smallest part of Anakin Skywalker feels more comfortable with Crest than he does other stormtroopers. Because they talk about, like, oh, he has a regiment of stormtroopers that he handpicks and stuff, but he keeps Crest with him.
Yeah.
Even though, Crest is great, but he's aging. You can tell, like, he's not the soldier he was, but I think the smallest part of Anakin Skywalker is in there, like, being like, Rex, buddy,
Chat says Crest got promoted at the end of the book to lieutenant.
Oh, lieutenant.
So he was sergeant.
Okay.
Now he's lieutenant.
Gotcha. Okay.
So,
I really like Crest.
I'm surprised he got promoted. All the times he's like, you failed me.
He did good stuff in there, too.
It's like, sir, the ship's gone.
Yeah. What? It was you. It's not like I took orders from asshole off the street.
That was
Tarkin told me.
That was an interesting thing too. Is like the shadow feeds, whatever they were calling it, and they kind of connected that to the Clone Wars too, right? Where it was like this reporter lady would like do these and recreate for the news, and
fake
now
hollows.
they're like making. it's kind of weird because like I feel like we're getting into that now with a lot of these AI things and stuff too. So it's like what Cress is going through is like what I feel like other people are going through right now with like. And I hope that real?
Yeah, I know, right? And I hope that their solution isn't our solution. Where at the end, there's like, all right, well, the Empire's just going to take over the entire Holonet now.
Take it over all.
We're just going to take it all. It's ours. It's all military stuff now.
Yeah.
Thank you. I actually really did enjoy the rebels in this. Like they felt very unique in that they weren't just awesome starfighter pilots and ex-military people. They come from all walks of life. They were journalists and they were doctors and satirists, and it was just really cool to see that. And they all were very they knew exactly what was going to happen to them. They didn't care.
They went on that mission we're gonna get this mission done. And it's like, what we do? Buy some years from like the convoy hit and everything, and
they died screaming terribly.
Do you think I wanted to make sure I understood the end of it? Mm-hmm. Is it? Make sure his name was Teller, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Teller, right?
Yeah, Teller got away on his headhunter.
He gets away.
Yeah,
and then he goes back to the Carrion place.
He tries to
try to get Tarkin, and falls in a pit and breaks his ankle.
Yep.
So at the end, he's like, "All right, I'm gonna leave. If you get out, here's the blaster. Mm-hmm. Good luck." And then his uncle was like, "Should I watch him? Should I leave a speeder for him or whatever?" And he's like, Tarkin's response was like, if you think you want to help him, keep an eye on him. Yeah. See what you want to do. You may keep me on my toes.
Keep me on my toes.
And I'm like, do you think Teller got out of that? Like, that's a fun way to kind of leave that where, like, they don't necessarily say, like, he's dead or he's not, but just kind of like, maybe. I don't know.
Sure. No, I get you. I think it informs a lot about Tarkin, especially his time on the plateau, his adaptability, and the way that he can wait and see and be very patient. It's very anti-Vader in that way, right? I love that where he's like, if I'm always looking out for you, I'm gonna catch way more things, right? It's a really cool strategy, but I don't know, and I don't want to know if Teller shows up in any other stuff either.
No, I get you there. Yeah. I was just thinking about that. I'm like, man, did he get out of there?
Yeah.
Did he die there? That's like he's just even saying
a really cool part.
Broken ankle, you get out of there at nighttime. They're not very nice to you in this planet when you. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, but I thought that was an interesting way for at least his response to it all.
Yeah.
What'd you think of the Emperor talking about Plagueis and stuff?
Oh, how Plagueis would be upset that he involved himself so much.
There was that. He also was like talking about forming the galaxy and the
reality.
Way he wanted, making his reality.
Have you read James Luceno's Darth Plagueis?
I've never read Darth Plagueis, no.
Now, it's not canon, but it's so good that I kind of don't care, and I kind of think of it as canon anyway, it's canon until someone says it's not for me. And I know that I know that in terms of what is canon, what isn't, it should be more of a hard line, but I think that book is so good.
I think I started at one point because I feel like there was some kind of cave-in thing towards the beginning. Mm-hmm. Does that sound right? Mm-hmm. Okay. I remember that, but I don't remember much else.
It's very different type of book because that book takes place over the course of years, whereas this is a week.
So I think you start with Plagueis with his master, right?
Yeah.
And then eventually you get to
Darius,
now he has Palpatine, and now
that book, man, you will never watch Episode 1 the same. If you consider that to be what happened, you will never watch Episode 1 the same.
Hopefully they do something with that because Darth Plagueis is canon. It's just the official story of him isn't canon.
Sure.
So maybe they'll get more.
I mean, maybe we can even do a segment of Star Wars Legends, and we do a book review on some of the the absolute gems from the old Legends stories. Would be fun. Sure. And that one I would put up there, probably next to almost anything else from the Legends continuity.
Really?
Yeah.
I know a lot of people talk highly on Bane.
Bane is also
being
good.
A big one.
Drew Karpyshhian as well. Mm-hmm. You read the Revan book that he did.
Revan book I liked a lot. Yeah. If you like KOTOR and stuff, I thought it did a really good job of after.
Yeah.
Of technically between KOTOR 1 and SWTOR. Because they kind of melded some stories there.
Now, I mean, I like James. I like the stuff that he's done. If I were to recommend, hey, I'm thinking about getting into the books, which James Luceno book should I read? I would say Plagueis. Even over Tarkin. I enjoyed Tarkin, but I feel like it's more technical. I feel like you have to be a little bit more invested in Star Wars to really get it and to be very interested. I would never speak bad about a book, especially one like this where I had a really good time. But it wasn't my favorite of the books that we've read so far.
I get you.
Especially just because I was kind of the same with you. It took me 2 or 3 tries to sometimes I turn on an audiobook and I'm 6 hours later. I'm like, holy shit, what have I done? I've spent so much time. But that one, I'm like, I started it. I'm like, okay. And he's designing an outfit and he's the droid. And I'm like, I gotta do some stuff real quick. I'll come back to this. And then
come back later.
And like 2 weeks later, I'm like, I gotta read. So that definitely happened to me.
No, I understand that. Have we ever heard of a hyperspace buoy before?
Yeah. Kinda.
Because they brought up like the hyperspace buoy that like
the buoys,
took
the
out
stations,
so that they couldn't like follow them or something like that. And I'm like, what's a hyperspace buoy?
The Indictor, Death Stars, not Death Stars, Star Destroyers, that type of stuff. Yeah, I mean, I think every author kind of has their own way, like certain technical things are done sometimes. But yeah, buoys have been a part of it.
Okay, I was just wondering about that. I can think of like the episode 2 era Jedi Starfighters that had like their little hyperspace rings that they put on. But I'm like, I don't know what a buoy is.
So it's really more about the capability of your nav computer, right? Like L3 from Solo is so integral and benefits the Falcon when she eventually becomes a part of it.
Like you don't need them.
Yeah, you don't need the buoys. The buoys are just, they're really just like getting on the highway.
Yeah.
Or you can go off-road if you have a really good nav computer.
But if I'm just in like a little canoe, like I should probably follow the buoys.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, like a lot of shipping lanes are going to be doing that. A lot of more commercial stuff, and just people that don't have a whole lot of money are going to be using buoys as opposed to developing their own very sophisticated nav computers or buying their own sophisticated nav computers to make their own jumps. So it's kind of both.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just hadn't heard one before, and I was like, I wonder how much of this there is.
I think that's right. If I'm wrong,
you just make it up.
I'm pretty sure I'm right, but if I'm wrong, I want credit for how well I answered that question. Yeah.
I want to make sure. I don't know if you had any other notes too of things that you.
No, I don't really have anything specific. I enjoyed just the kind of political intrigue that the book brought. I feel like a lot of the TVs, the movie stuff, it kind of stays away from that. But the books have a really good look into internal politics. I just loved snarky Masamita talking with Tarkin in the beginning when he gets to Coruscant, or even before when he like refuses to say this is the will of the Emperor, like you are ordered by the Emperor, just to get Tarkin to the point. It's like, just tell me it's the Emperor and I'll come. So it's the Emperor. It's just so funny to me.
Well, I remember Tarkin being like, "Why wasn't it in order?"
Yeah,
it's like, it just wasn't.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
All right. Well, yeah. I mean, those are probably my general thoughts of it.
Sure.
There's a few things I really like. There's some pretty good comedy here and there. I like that they talk about rumors that Tarkin had, where it's like he once beat a Wookiee with his bare hands.
Yeah, that was funny.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, very Kim Jong-un.
Yeah. So I like those kind of moments and stuff too. But
yeah.
I think the best part about it, like I made a joke about the Dude Where's My Car Star Wars edition, but seeing like Darth Vader and Tarkin working together and doing things and kind of building their friendship, I guess, was a really cool thing to see. And just getting a chance to, I guess, I don't know, get in Tarkin's head more so. Because like I don't know why he's just the bad guy that he is.
Sure.
You know? Why do you how do you be so callous as to just blow up a planet? But I see him do some terrible things, not really caring for what they're doing, and we're pretty good there.
We have some specific Tarkin questions that we can try to jump in just real quick. The first one is from Eldrin Jack, who says, I read this book a couple of years back, really liked it. I thought of it a lot while watching Andor. Do you think that Cyril Karn is a big Tarkin fan? I can see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could see
a
that too.
fanboy, maybe, yes.
Yeah, I get that. I have to think about this with Andor. That might be kind of cool.
Yeah,
some
that's
of the
pretty
ideas
cool.
there. I think Rogue One and the Catalyst book would be really good to get to.
Yeah. We had Irish Nexus. Not sure if you remember from the end of Light of the Jedi when the Nihil Kassav attacks a planet, and it's what gets him killed. The planet is Iriado. Now you know why people reading Light of the Jedi realized Kassav was immediately dead when he found out it was Iriado. That's a cool connection. Cool.
Okay.
I think I'm saying that name correctly, by the way.
Iriado. Yeah, I believe so. That sounds right. Okay. I forgot all about that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Nexus.
Dr. Weirdness says, after I read about Tarkin and his struggle, upbringing, and becoming a pretty badass warrior, him blowing up on the Death Star didn't feel like a satisfying death anymore. Do you feel the same? Maybe an alternate death?
Because of all the stuff he does? I don't know. I think... I'm trying to... what do I think about that? I'm sure he's not thinking that there is a way that they can blow up their entire Death Star like they do, right?
Oh, absolutely.
He's like, I will take out the entire rebellion. I will be the hero to the Emperor.
Yeah.
And I will, maybe he'll make a whole new title again for me.
Yeah.
You know, like.
I think it's a satisfying death. Tarkin in this book, a lot of his upbringing is about overcoming and controlling nature, and the Death Star is nothing but the ultimate insult to nature. It can literally destroy entire planets, you know? And it's very satisfying to think of some of the things that were said to him in that lineup as the rebel martyrs were, you know, getting their last word in, being like, this will not last, Tarkin. You will die, and it's going to be glorious. And it was a pretty glorious
went out
shot.
with a boom.
1 in a million.
Yeah.
Luke Skywalker.
A local boy.
Luke Skywalker took out Tarkin. I find it pretty satisfying, considering that he was on board what he considered to be, despite the very end where he's talking about, like, you know, the greatest power in the galaxy while he was looking at Sidious and Vader.
Yeah.
Being put in command, because, you know, the rancid stuff, the twist about how he felt like passed over, and what does the Emperor do? Just promotes him more.
Yeah.
It gives him the greatest weapon to have ever existed, you know?
No,
So,
I think it fits.
Yeah.
And they talk about how he wants to rule with fear, kind of, in a way. Not rule with fear, but, like, that's what will keep people in line. And he mentions that in episode 4. And then him talking about his comfort level that he has on this ship, like, he doesn't feel that it's in danger, right? Even they're shooting at us, they're flies, it doesn't matter. We've got the rebels. So, no, I don't know. For me, not yet. Maybe I need to rewatch it, and I'll think about it more then.
Yeah.
But
okay.
We could also get more Tarkin stories. Could be great.
Yeah.
So.